Hey everyone, it's Sievers and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So tonight I am going to teach you the ins and outs of making a French omelet at home. So this masterclass is going to take you from the very basics of the few ingredients, why they're so important, the proper pan, techniques of unfolding the omelet onto the dinner plate, all kinds of wonderful, useful tips and tricks to make sure that you master the French omelet at home. And my cookbook that came out in October is Earthy and Elegant French Omelets, Your New House Meal. So I wrote an entire book on French omelets because I think it is the one dish, that one recipe that you can serve in under 30 seconds that will be absolutely perfect every single time. And it is my house meal, that one recipe that I serve to guests new and old, time and time again, with different variations of toppings and all of those wonderful things. So let's start by talking about what a French omelet is. French omelets and how they differ from American omelets. So a French omelet is this perfectly golden yellow, thin, very tender, very pillowy, almost velvety omelet. I make mine with 2 extra large eggs, a little bit of butter, and some salt and pepper. And that's my simple French omelet. And what I love about French omelets is that everything goes really on top of the finished omelet. So all of your toppings, all of your gorgeous cheeses. I have beautiful recipes for like a white bean omelet, a omelette de fromage, all kinds of just tartine d'omelette, all kinds of beautiful recipes where everything really goes on top of the omelet versus an American omelet where everything goes inside and it tends to become this big, overcooked, brown, kind of not very chic, nothing that I would want to serve at a dinner party. But French omelets are going to be your new best friend for entertaining. And even just a quick breakfast for yourself or a quick lunch. So let me give you a little overhead of what I have here. So my simple French omelet, like I said, is comprised and made with only a few ingredients. I have some room temperature extra large eggs. I have some room temperature European or French butter. And I have an 8-inch non-stick Calphalon pan. This pan itself I've had for about 10 years. And this is the one pan that I find works perfectly every single time, regardless of whether I'm cooking in my own kitchen or I'm making omelets for a client's dinner party, or I've even made omelets on a hot plate for 40 people for a brunch. So I always say, if I can make an omelet for 40 people in literally under 25 minutes, you can definitely make French omelets at home and adopt them as your new house meal. So let's start by talking about why I love this pan. This pan itself it's not a fancy omelet pan. It's just a great 10-inch non-stick skillet. I'm sorry, I said 8-inch before. It's actually a 10-inch skillet. And what I love about this pan is the weight of it. It really allows me to have great control over the pan. And you'll see that more as the technique when I show you in the kitchen. And it's a pan that's under $35. So for me, this pan is really the secret to a beautiful French omelet at home. And then I mentioned also some butter. So I use French butter or European style Irish butter, something like that. It has better flavor. I always use unsalted. And the flavor, because it has more milk fat in it, it just has a richer flavor. And butter is not only a key ingredient into making the omelet and for having have the omelet actually be prepared. But it's also one of the main flavors in a simple French omelet, which is what we're going to make tonight. So you want that butter to be really beautiful and fresh and buttery. So let's go into the kitchen. Let's gather my little ingredients here. Let's go into the kitchen and let me kind of give you a little overhead view of what I have going on in here. So I'm going to make a lot of omelets with you tonight, and I'm going to show you just some different techniques that, or not techniques, I'm going to show you some different ways that a French omelet can go wrong. Because when you're learning how to make a simple French omelet with my mastered 30-second technique, it does take practice. But once you master the art of what the butter looks like before it starts to brown, how well you should beat the eggs, how to master the technique of swirling the pan and then jerking the pan forward and toward you to have that omelet fold onto itself. Once you master those things, it really, it sticks with you. And for me, it took almost 20 years ago was when I remember making my first French omelet. I was in a little apartment in Beacon Hill in Boston, and I got some fresh eggs, I got some red wine, I put on some music, and I thought I will practice until I get this right. And it took me about 2 dozen eggs. So there's lots of different ways that an omelet can go wrong, but I'm going to show you how to avoid all that tonight so that you can master the perfect French omelet at home. So let's start by getting some eggs ready. So for a French omelet, we need 2 extra large eggs, and I always crack mine into a little bowl. And we'll start by first with how to beat the eggs. So the idea with these eggs is that I don't want to really incorporate a lot of air into them. I don't want to make them too fluffy. I just want to make sure that the eggs yolks and the egg whites are really, really well incorporated. And I'm just using a little fork here. And I broke up the yolks first, and I'm just giving it a nice little beat. And you can tell when you're at home and you take your fork and you pull it through your eggs, if you still feel resistance, those still need to get beaten a little bit more. And there's little Gigi. Gigi loves when I make French omelets. Gigi's one of our little puppies. And when I pull the fork through, you can see there's still a little bit of a trail there. So I just keep beating. It usually happens pretty quick. And that's perfect. That's nice, and there's no resistance. Those are perfectly beaten eggs. So the other thing we need to do is add some salt. So I make my simple French omelet with a 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly ground black pepper. So let's make one omelet the proper way so I can show you exactly what it looks like. So I'm going to put my 10-inch nonstick skillet over the highest heat. And that seems counterintuitive because typically when you're cooking protein, you want to cook it low and slow. But in this case, I want to cook it on that high heat so that the eggs inside the omelet stay a little bit runny and they stay perfectly tender. And this is the first kind of tip for your own kitchen. You can undercook the omelet, you can burn the omelet very, very easy. And it's really just, it can be just a few seconds, maybe 10 or 12 seconds in between before the omelet is too underdone or the omelet is too done. So you have to understand your stove. And, you know, when I tell people about French omelets and I want you to learn how to make them at home, it's really the time to quiet your world. No phones, no Instagram, no social media. You know, really sequester yourself into your kitchen and learn how to use your kitchen. Learn how to make the omelet so that you can make them again and again and again. And eventually, you'll be able to teach maybe your own family or friends how to make it. So you know the pan is hot enough when you kind of hover your hand over it and you really can feel that heat radiating from that pan. So I'm going to take about a tablespoon of butter. That goes right in. And you can see it instantly starts to melt. That's perfect. And I'm just going to let that melt overhead and then pick up my pan and start swirling it. I want that butter to get up and around the sides. You see all of that gorgeous, oh, and it just smells so good too. And as soon as the foam starts to subside, just like this, and it gets a little quiet, I'm going to pour my eggs right into the center of the pan. And I'm going to let them sit for just a few seconds, 5-6 seconds, and you'll see little bubbles start to form and the omelet on the edges starts to cook. And this is where you take your pan and you really start to swirl the eggs. That's helping the eggs kind of coagulate for the center. And then as soon as you come to this gorgeous, almost like little wave stage, you just take the pan and you jerk it towards you. And this is one of the techniques that's the most hard to learn. And then, but we're going to go through it. Take your pan underhanded and then let your omelet literally fold and roll into place. So that is the perfect French omelet. So you can put a little bit more salt. I like to garnish my finished omelets with a little bit of fleur de sel, but show me something that you can get on the table for yourself or a dinner party or a lunch or a brunch that takes that little time, I mean seconds. And you really do have such a beautiful presentation, a beautiful dish, little fleur de sel. Now let's cut into it so you can see what's inside. Because the inside, hope you can see it from there. I'm just going to cut into this. It's perfectly cooked. And let's see. See if you guys can see inside of there. Perfectly cooked eggs. It folded onto itself beautifully. Everything is nice and tender. And that's the first French omelet we're going to make tonight. So that's the proper French omelet. So let me grab some paper towels here so that I can wipe out my pan. So if you were doing this at home and you wanted to make the next omelet, you'd do exactly this. You'd wipe out your pan because you don't want any of the egg bits or any of that butter residue left over to burn. And now you saw how easily that butter just melted. So now let's put it over high heat and let me show you what happens if you let your butter cook too long. You'll end up with something that's called browned butter. Browned butter is a fantastic way of transforming butter into this gorgeous, nutty, flavored, beautiful ingredient that is great in baking. It's great for chocolate chip cookies, brown butter chocolate chip cookies, but it's not exactly what we're looking for with our French omelet. So let's see, I have my pan nice and hot, and you see how quickly the butter melted before. So now let's put the butter back in. And I'm going to show you. If you let this cook too long before you put in your eggs, you'll start to actually see it brown and you'll start to smell it. It takes on a very nutty flavor, and you can see when you swirl it around, it gets very, very dark. That's exactly what we don't want for our French omelets. So, brown butter, great for baking, not so much for a beautiful French omelet. So, and I'll show you. That's very hot. You can see how brown that butter is in the bottom of the pan. All of those milk solids have started to turn, which is what you want when you're making brown butter, just not right now. So let's see, let's get some more paper towel. I'm gonna let that pan cool for a few minutes. And let's talk about all of the things that you can use, how you can use the French omelet in your everyday kind of world. So what I think is really important about French omelets is because they come together so quickly, it's a great thing. They're a great thing to have in your back pocket for maybe a last minute lunch. A friend is going to come over, not right now, but or maybe you want to host a last minute dinner party. You don't need a lot of ingredients. You just need some eggs, butter, salt, pepper, and then toppings. If you wanted to make just a fine herbe omelet, which is some dill, some chives, some tarragon. I put a little flat leaf Italian parsley in mine. All of those herbs go into the eggs as you're cooking them. And it folds onto itself just like we did, and you get a beautiful fine herbe omelet. That's the only omelet in my cookbook, French Omelettes, that anything goes inside of the eggs besides the salt and pepper. If you want to take it up a notch, I have a recipe in the book for roasted fennel and parmesan omelet, where you take bulbs of fennel, you core them, cut them up, roast them on a sheet pan, and then put those on top of the finished omelet with a little bit of Parmesan cheese, serve it with a little bit of rosé. It's really delicious. So let's get some other eggs prepared. Let's get some eggs cracked here. So now I'm going to show you what happens if you cook your omelet too long. And again, this all happens. This is not something that, maybe if you master this the very first time, then you are a great student. But it took me a little bit of time. So now I'm going to get my eggs, put in a little bit of salt. Remember, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of freshly cracked black pepper. Break up my yolks a little bit, just like this. And then just start to give them a beat. I love using these little tiny kind of prep bowls because it just makes making omelets so much easier. You see how quick the process is. And when you're entertaining for a crowd, you can have 4 or 6 bowls, even 8 bowls of your eggs already beaten, so that all you have to do is make your first omelet, wipe the pan out, put more butter, and pour in the eggs. Because the process goes so quickly, I find that it really is easy to do it this way in small bowls. You can use mugs, teacups, really any small bowl. They don't even have to match. So perfectly beaten eggs, as you can see, there's no resistance. Exactly what we're looking for. So now I'm going to show you what happens if you cook your omelet a little too long. And it doesn't taste bad. It just kind of changes the texture and gets a little bit more rubbery on the outside. But we're not going after a rubbery omelet. We want a beautiful, tender, sumptuous omelet. So again, the same thing. I'm going to wait for my pan to heat up. Now you will notice that your pan heats up much quicker if you're making omelet after omelet after omelet. So you might not need as much time between. Butter is nicely melted. Look at that. Nice, beautiful yellow, bright yellow French butter. Get the butter all up along the sides. Okay, so now we're going to put in our eggs and immediately start to sizzle, start to bubble. And I typically wait about 5 to 7 seconds until all of this happens. Start to turn my pan, swirl my eggs just like this. And if I let it sit for a few extra seconds, see all that wetness. As the omelet folds over onto itself, all of this wetness is going to automatically cook. If you get nervous and you wait too long before you jerk your pan towards you to start folding it, the bottom of the omelet is getting brown. And that's what's going to cause the omelet to be a little bit more rubbery. So, you can see, this is a perfect example. And you can smell it too. It smells different than when you make the omelet the proper way. It has more of a, not burnt, but it has more of a browned, kind of eggy scent. And so that's what happens if you let your omelet cook a little bit too long. Still edible, but but very different looking than the first omelet. I mean, look at how gorgeous and yellow that first omelet is. No browning on the top. It's perfect. So I'm gonna make a little backlog here of omelets. So that's the overly browned omelet, and that's okay. It's still edible, but you want to work toward getting your omelets to be having no color at all, just beautiful bright yellow. So now let's get eggs ready again. I'm gonna get more eggs ready. 2 more eggs. So when you're doing this at home, obviously, you can have your stack of dinner plates like I have. You can have all of your bowls off to the side. I'm very small. It's a small but mighty kitchen. But I don't really cook a lot in this kitchen in regards to having a lot of prep things around because there's not a lot of space. I usually prep out on the island where I usually film and then kind of just walk back and forth. For me, it's a little bit easier when I'm hosting a party. But for something like this, for tonight's class, this gorgeous masterclass, hopefully you're enjoying on French omelets. It gets a little crowded in here, but that's okay. It's charming, right? That's a charming kitchen is what is the code word for small. So okay, I have my eggs. I'll put in a little salt, just like this, little pepper. C'est parfait. I don't speak French. I know very few words, and I sprinkle them in whenever I can to hopefully help give you a little bit more of a vibe. So, get my butter. Pan's still nice and hot, so it's probably not going to need as much time heating up. Perfect. So as soon as that butter starts to sizzle and melt, it's perfect. And then start twirling the pan. So now I'm going to show you, we're going to do 2 different steps, 2 different omelets, because I'm going to show you first the twirling action, because that's really important. So eggs go right into the center. Wait a few, 5, 6, 7 seconds till the edges kind of start to cook a little bit. The eggs in the center start to bubble. And then when you're twirling the pan, it's not this. It's not this little motion. It's this really exaggerated motion of twirling the pan. See how the eggs come up along the side? It's perfect, just like this. You want to keep that moving. And then you want to, and it's not jerking it this way. It's really jerking that pan towards you, just like that. And then if it doesn't fall perfectly into paste, just use the side of your frying pan. Little trick there. But as you can see, another gorgeous omelet. So let's do the folding and the jerking motion again, because that's the hardest, to me, that's the hardest part. That's the whole technique. That's the hardest part to learn. And it's something that looks really simple, and it is very simple once you understand how exaggerated that motion is. I remember I was on my book tour, and I was at Williams-Sonoma in Columbus Circle in New York City, and I was demoing, I think that day I made like, I don't know, maybe 200 omelets as part of my book signing event. And I just remember a few times as people were swirling the pan, they overdid it and the eggs kind of came out of the pan and onto the stove, and they were so, a few people were just so upset and, oh, I'm so sorry, I've made a mess. And it's okay. Cooking is not perfect. Nobody's born and knows how to cook. It's all about practice and learning. And I think so if you make a mess, you stop, you clean it up. This is why you don't make French omelets for the first time when you're entertaining. You get some good wine, which I'm surprised I don't have open. Well, it's opened, but it's not poured. probably best to teach you how to make a French omelet and not be a little on the buzzed side. So I'm just going to get these ready again. And I want to show you again the jerking part of the motion, the swirling part, because that's the part that once you master that, you're golden. So again, pan back on the heat. My 2 eggs, salt and pepper, nothing's changed. I wonder what Ryan and I are going to have for dinner tonight. Something tells me it's going to be omelets. Nice hot pan. Excellent. So butter goes in. Twirl it. Notice I'm not also holding the pan here. I'm holding the pan really close to the, down the handle. Okay, so eggs go in, et voila, just like this. And again, it's not this little motion. It's this really exaggerated motion. It feels much more, it's not a normal sensation to be in the kitchen doing these beautiful, big, movements. And then it's not this, it's that. And there will be times when you go to do that and the omelet will go, well, I didn't do it, but the omelet will flip out onto your pan or onto your stove. And when that happens, you just stop and you clean it up and you do it again. So this omelet got a little bit brown because I was talking through the swirling motion and the jerking toward you motion, things like that. But that's okay. We're going to make one more perfectly cooked French omelet, and then maybe I can convince Mr. Sievers to pour me a glass of wine, and if there are any questions, I can answer them, or we can move on. So, cleaning out the pan, one more gorgeous omelet. So I hope you guys are getting inspired by this. I hope that, this is taking some of the mystique and mystere out of making a French omelet at home. This is the technique that I use because I'm most comfortable doing this way, and I'm also most comfortable doing this for a crowd, which, as you can see, you can really get a dinner party on the table within minutes. There's other videos on my channel that take you through roasted vine tomato omelet I made in Paris. All kinds of omelets, but everything is on top. And what I love is that you can really get all the toppings done ahead of time, and you can have gorgeous French music, Edith Piaf blasting away in the kitchen while you're serving dinner, and your stack of plates and your bowls of eggs, and you can have your guests out into the dining room, and maybe they're going to come up with their own plate and then put the toppings on their own omelets, and you can really have fun with it. It's this beautiful, earthy, presentation that I just think is so wonderful. And nobody serves French omelets at home because the word omelet scares people. Nobody wants to stand around and make omelets for 8 people the traditional way. But as you can see, making omelets for 8 people my way goes really quick, and it's really impressive. So, okay, last one. Here we go. Pan on. Eggs, 2 eggs, extra large beaten, 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of pepper, gorgeous French butter. Pan is very hot still. I may have used a tablespoon and a half of butter for this one. Oh well, that's okay. Just like this, eggs in the center. Wait a few seconds and start to swirl. Swirl, swirl, swirl. Let the egg get caught up, kind of congeal a little bit. See, all of that wetness is in there. And this is the perfect time to start jerking the omelet and the pan forward just like this. And as soon as you do that, it folds onto itself and then essentially cooks the eggs in the center. And then it just rolls out. I'm trying to do it a slant so you guys can see. Omelet rolls out. I mean, look at that. Okay, that was the universe saying, we're going to give you the perfect French. I mean, that is a perfect French omelet. Mine hardly ever look that perfect. And if you want to be a little decadent, you could even spread a little butter on top. I happen to like spreading a little bit of creme fraiche on top of mine, a little bit of fleur de sel, a little bit of fresh parsley. Once you taste how gorgeous this base is, I mean, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? I love this. They're nice and tender. They're hot. So let's take a little bite here. It is the complete opposite of an American omelet. Let's go out here back into the living room. That little crispy bits of fleur de sel, that's a really good omelet. So do we have any questions?
We do have some questions.
Do I have time to pour a glass of wine? You do have time. Okay, stay right there, guys. Let me grab some wine. I have a beautiful Merlot opened, actually from St. Francis. This is a new wine to me, a new vineyard out of Sonoma. And I thought, just because we're having French omelets doesn't mean we have to have French wine. We can have a beautiful Sonoma County American wine.
So your first question.
Yes, my first question is from?
This is from LJA.
LJA, thank you.
He's back.
I'm back, hi.
He wants to know if you could talk a little bit more about the pan. What kind is it?
Yes, let me get the pan for you. So LJA wants to know about this pan. So this is a Calphalon non-stick 10-inch skillet. And there's something about, you know, as I was showing you about swirling the pan and you saw the eggs kind of going up along the sides, this particular pan for me is like the perfect omelet pan. It allows the eggs to stay in the pan because of the high sides, and it just unmolds the omelet so perfectly. And I like that you can get this pan at any, you know, department store that sells quality cookware or online. I've been using this pan, this exact pan I've had for I think 10 or 11 years. I do have 2 of these pans, the same size, because if I am doing a dinner party or an event, like that brunch for 40 I was telling you about, because the pan stays so hot, it's easy for me to let one pan cool down, get to the next one, make the omelet, and go back and forth. I can make 2 omelets on burners at the same time, but I would much rather you learn how to just make one French omelet at a time for a dinner party. I'm going to keep eating this as we talk because it's delicious. So I hope that helped.
Where can you buy the pan?
You can buy the pan, department stores, calphalon.com, anywhere that fine cookware is sold. You want to get, excuse me, you want to get the Calphalon 10-inch non-stick pan.
We have a question from Amy Tomaszewski.
Hi, Amy Tomaszewski.
I see that you are in Chicago. I live in Urbana. After COVID, can she come visit and we can have wine and you'll make her an omelet?
Yes, Amy wants to know, she lives in Illinois?
Yeah.
Excuse me. Amy wants to know if after COVID is over, can she come to my apartment and make omelets and wine? The answer is absolutely yes. I think that's one of the things that people don't recognize or realize is if you are visiting Chicago and you want to go have a drink, or if I'm in your city and you want me to come for dinner, I very often, if my schedule allows, will accept or invite. So absolutely, Amy. Santé to that.
If you are serving your omelet for dinner party,
yes,
what other things would you serve? Salad, bread, potatoes, what sorts of things?
So the question was, if I'm serving my omelets for a dinner party, what other things would I serve? So because I'm going to be in the kitchen making the main course live as people are waiting, or maybe you want to get, like I said, get people to be a part of it. I always do just a beautiful, simple salad. The cookbook also has 13 component recipes that for serving alongside of the omelets. So my everyday lemon vinaigrette is the perfect, beautiful, bright salad to serve on the side. Big basket of baguette, crispy roasted potatoes, things that you can serve at room temperature. I actually have a great French carrot salad. I remember carrot salad as a kid being very like gloopy and filled with mayonnaise and just not my cup of tea. My French carrot salad is more of like a vinaigrette base. And I find that salad, shaved carrots, beautiful French omelet, baguette, some crispy potatoes, and lots of wine. And everybody's really happy.
Just to check, you jerk the pan toward yourself? How does the jerking motion work?
So, when you watch the video back, because I encourage you to do this, because my other videos where I showed you a recipe for a particular omelet doesn't go really in depth. It just kind of does it really quick. This masterclass was really to show you that it is more of an exaggerated motion. It's not these little swirls and this little like this small motion. It's really these more exaggerated motions, and when you're jerking the pan toward you, it's this quick, it's not back and forth. It's this quick motion so that the very first time that omelet folds onto itself, and that's how it cooks all of that wetness on the top. And you can do it one time, and then when you go to unmold the omelet, you take your frying pan or your skillet, and you don't grab it. Can you give him a little overhead, Ryan? You don't grab it like this and try to unmold it like this. That's very awkward. You want to grab your pan underhand, just like this. Fold your thumb in your hand so you feel the pan, and then I'll show you here. I'll put it in here. So the omelet essentially will be somewhere along this part of the pan. And then as you fold it out, obviously this one's cooked, but you can coax it out, and you can use the lip of your pan to help roll it onto itself. So I hope that little demonstration works. The jerking part and the swirling part, those are really the two hardest, and I say hard, but they're the two most complicated things that you have to get that knack for. Once you nail it, you'll go, ah, that felt perfect. I understood what that felt like in my own hand, in my own motion. So that's where the practice comes in.
So the way you did it, it looked like you kind of pushed it out and then jerked it.
Yeah, so push it out and then jerk it back. And jerk it back, like jerk it forward to you.
Where are your prep bowls from?
So those little white stacked bowls are, I think they're Crate and Barrel. God, they're old too. Actually, I think Ryan had those bowls before we met, if I'm not mistaken. I have about 12 of those little bowls. They're great for, of course, prep bowls. They're great for ice cream. They're great for cereal. When we have cereal in the house, because it's hard for me to have cereal in the house and not want to eat the entire box. But they're wonderful, you know, dishwasher safe, and they're thick. So if you clang them around like I tend to do, they don't chip very easily. I think that's it.
We covered all that.
Okay. Well, you guys, I hope that tonight's French Omelet Masterclass gave you kind of the guts to go into your kitchen, try something new that maybe you've never tried before, and really enjoy the process of learning how to master my French omelet. You know, I talked a lot about it being my house meal, and I like the French omelet as my house meal because it's so versatile. I can serve it for breakfast. I can serve it for lunch, for brunch, for dinner. There'll be times when Ryan and I will come home from, maybe a concert or the symphony or a very late movie, and I'll make maybe a French omelet for us to split before we go to bed if maybe had a little champagne and just want a little nosh. But once you master this beautiful, tender, golden yellow, velvety base of my French omelet, you will recognize and you'll start to understand all the things that you can put on top of them. Cheeses, vegetables, herbs, anything that, is in your fridge. It's also a great kind of fridge clean out because you can saute that extra half an onion that you've had in the back of your fridge with some carrots, and you can create just this little medley of beautiful toppings that will hopefully feed you, your family, and friends. I do encourage you to pick up my new cookbook, French Omelets, Your New House Meal. It's on sale right now at marcsievers.com. Also, while you're there, you can watch other videos about French omelets. But this book, really, I wrote it with you in mind. It's all omelets that I've been making for decades, and some new ones as well. There's an omelet, my favorite one. I'm going to find you the picture really, really quick because it's really delicious. And it is so simple. It's the balsamic red pepper omelet with fontina. I make this omelet so much because I always keep jars of roasted red peppers in the refrigerator. And it's such a showstopper omelet. It's so simple, and the presentation, the colors, the gorgeous yellow, red peppers, some fontina cheese, and some basil. It's just a really beautiful omelet. So if I see your order come through for French omelets, your new house meal, I have some additional things I will throw into this package for you that are brand new. Actually, they just got delivered this morning. So I have a few surprises for you, and I hope you enjoyed this masterclass. If you want other topics to be covered, and I feel like I am an expert that can help you at home, let me know in the comments, and there'll be many, many more wonderful one-on-one virtual experiences where we can have conversations and cook together. Until next time, I will see you guys later. Subscribe to my channel, of course. Duh. Drink lots of red wine tonight. Duh. And have a wonderful Saturday. Good night, everybody.